Hey there guys, I'm Alex the Whyzer Owl, and we are back with another TD event wrap-up from the Jungle Redeployment AM side and Pro side. So the quick backstory on this event is that the Welcome to the Jungle B tier is an annual event that our PDGA state coordinator Bob Kolchuk runs out in Fitchburg at Coggeshall. This event is a great way for players to start off their season with a big event, and it's really well attended because it's a really well run event. This year, Welcome to the Jungle was one of the first tournament registrations that went live in 2021, and it sort of ended up being what the blueprint was for what every tournament registration would end up being. That it sold out in less than 45 seconds, and the waitlist got to be about 120 people between the AM day and the Pro day. Caused a lot of problems. Now Bob is one of my close personal friends, and I was none too pleased seeing some of the flack that he was getting because the hard work that he put in created an event that people wanted to play. So I hatched an idea with Bob that would take some flack off of him as well as get as many people as we could possibly get playing events on that weekend. Thus, the Jungle Redeployment at Devon's was born. Mirrored events that I would take people who are only on the wait list to play 15 minutes down the road at the General at Devon's. By offering the waitlist only event over at Devon's, we were able to accommodate over 290 players between Welcome to the Jungle and the Jungle Redeployment over the weekend. So we made a lot of people happy, even if it was super stressful for us! So if you're thinking about emulating the model that Bob and I sort of did to accommodate more players, don't do it this way. Make it one event at 2 courses. That way you're not shuffling finances, managing 4 different disc golf scene pages, and tracking where everybody's going and where their money's going. It was a nightmare. Make it one event. So unlike my last event over at Hawkins Woods, which we really had no idea what the ratings were going to be like, where the separation holes were going to be, Devon's is an older course that has had plenty of events on it, so we knew where it was going to be scoring, and we sort of knew where all of the separation holes were going to be. Devon's is a par 56 that's super tight and wooded, has a bunch of elevation changes, and par generally rates between 970 and 980. The Redeployment really saw that be not that different, with par on AM day coming in at 974 unofficial, and on Pro day came in at 985. Do keep in mind that it was raining on Pro day, whereas AM day was ideal conditions. Coincidentally, the hot round was actually shooting par on AM day, whereas on Pro day, Noah Cronin put up the highest rated round of the day of a 4 under 52 round 2 that came in at 1017. No, he didn't. Dylan Capaccioli put up a PDGA sanctioned round record of neg 8, which came in at 1054, which is stupid. So why don't we start diving into the individual hole scoring for both AM day and Pro day. And since we've seen so many tournaments on the General, I sort of identified hole 1 and hole 10 being our separation holes for these weekend tournaments. Now hole 1 is going to be a long par 3 that has a really narrow gap with really thick woods on both the right and left side if you miss, and then the hole goes up to the left on top of a hill with a very sharp ridge that's going to be going down the right side of the hole. This is a par 3 that's not going to be twoed all that often, and actually wasn't twoed at all during either the AM or the Pro event. For Pro day, it ended up playing right around a stroke over par, and on AM day, it was almost a stroke and a half over par. So hole 1 definitely was a big separator. And hole 1 actually proved to be the deciding factor on AM day and MA1. Going into their final hole, Nate Hartman and Riley Douglas both had a share of the lead. The big difference was that Nate was finishing on hole 18 because he was on lead card, and Riley was finishing on hole 1 because he was on the chase card. Now, as I mentioned, hole 1 is a super challenging par 3 that was playing almost a stroke and a half over par. Nate, on the other hand, was finishing on hole 18 which is a downhill short par 3 that has 2 lines and was playing almost exactly at par, so advantage Nate. These 2 players ended up scoring on these holes exactly the way that the stats said that they would. Riley ended up taking a 4, Nate took a 3, meaning Nate won the tournament. So that's how important a separating hole can be. So another important hole that I thought would play a big role in how the scoring separation was hole 10, which much like hole 1 involves a really tight tee shot on a difficult par 3 that saw no birdies throughout the course of the weekend. The difference between hole 1 and hole 10 is that hole 10 is downhill, and after you hit that gap, you need to get hard left and quick to fight up a hill to a protected basket. On Am Day, this hole played, again, about a stroke over par, and on Pro Day, I didn't see the separation that I expected off of it. It played about 0.81 strokes over par round 1, and just a half stroke on round 2. So you didn't see quite the amount of scoring variation as I expected on Pro Day, but the fact that nobody birdied it over the weekend I think speaks volumes of the hole. So going by the stats that nobody was able to birdie this hole, you might think that this would be one that you should change over to a par 4. And whenever Devons comes up, hole 10 is often discussed as a hole that needs work. Just making this a par 4 would actually transform it into one of the easier holes on the course if we're looking at the stats for this event as your barometer. In round 1, about 46.8% of the field parred the hole, and in round 2, 59.38 were carding a 3. So if you just turned hole 10 into a par 4, you're turning it into a hole that over half the field is birdieing, which I don't think is really the way to go with this hole. However, if you're going to try to drop those trees in the middle to open it up a little bit more, that's going to be tough to do, and you probably need professional tree guys to do it because they're big, mature trees that are all clumped together. My personal opinion on the hole is that you need to just clear the little skinny stuff that's deep on the line so that the shot becomes pump something straight and hard and give it that room to fade rather than try to split the gap on a weird angle to cut that corner. But not my course, neither here nor there, but it is an interesting data point to look at when you're discussing on what to do with this hole. So let's get to our congratulatory shout-outs for Am Day. In MA1 was Nate Hartman. In Masters 40 was Christopher Fell. In Masters 50 we had Bill Andrews. In Masters 60 we had Gary Young. In Intermediate we had Joe Casey, who also aced hole 18. Congratulations on that payout. And in Intermediate Women was Kristen White. In Recreational was Egan Tolkui. And that's it for Am Day. For our Pro winners, we had Michael Brook winning Pro Masters 50, John Williston winning Pro Masters 40 Plus, and an MPO, you can check out Daily Disc Golf's own Noah Cronin with his first MPO win. So congratulations to all of our winners. Lastly, our thank yous. A big thank you to Devon's Disc Golf for letting me crash their course for the weekend and run this event. A huge thank you to Kyle Moriarty, Dan Snyder, and Chuck Edmond for helping me out at the TD table for both AM and Pro Days. And a huge thank you to Prodigy Discs for getting us these beautiful A3s, M2s, A2s, PA3s, and X2s, all in Spectrum plastic for the AM Players Packs. There are leftover ones that you can check out at Disc Golf 978. And lastly, a huge heartfelt thank you to Bob Kolchuk for not just being an amazing friend, but a great PDGA state coordinator, an excellent TD, and a fabulous all-around guy. Thank you for everything you do, and it was my pleasure to assist you with this tournament, and hopefully we can make this one big 8th tier next year. So, I'm not TDing for another couple of weeks, so no more TD wrap-ups until later this season. Until next time, play Whyzer.